Constitutional lawyer Jonathan Alexandre says, make no mistake, the Christian-affirming decisions the Supreme Court made this term are monumental for what it means to be an American.
We're 5 for 5 in terms of incredible decisions that are life-affirming, they are constitutional defending, and they're really world-changing. The impact that our Constitution has impacts, of course, the Americans and their rights, but also sends a signal to the rest of the world that this is exactly the people that we are. I often believe that the Americans have an ownership of the Constitution. It's so unique to us. Other countries have tried to mirror it, but none have come close to the ownership that the American people have over our Constitution. And the fact that our justices have returned these fundamental rights, these understandings that are found in the text of the Constitution through these amazing decisions that have come out is such a joy to be a part of, but also a phenomenal thing to observe and to really see the effect that it will have, not just in the United States, but the signal that it sends to the rest of the world.
And the credit goes to this man, seen here in perhaps his greatest moment, when Trump became the first president to speak at the March for Life. This is the Republican president who actually had the fortitude and courage to do what he promised.
What an unbelievable man that God chose for the time. And I think one of the words that he said on Friday was effectively, this was God's work. Many politicians have had words against Roe v. Wade. Many presidents have had opportunities to place constitutional justices. President Trump, without any apology, not only appointed these individuals, got them nominated, confirmed by the Senate, but stuck to them. He could have bailed from a Kavanaugh. He could have not placed Barrett on the court when he did during that time period leading up to the election. But he promised that he would place 2 or 3 justices on the court that would ultimately rule according to the Constitution, and he followed that promise. One of the more critical times in American history on the presidential debate stage, you'll remember when then candidate Trump and candidate Hillary Clinton are debating abortion. And while Hillary Clinton is paying lip service to what she feels is the only way a woman can achieve her fullness is by having an abortion, President Trump focused on the child and said, we can't be a country that is tearing babies limb from limb. And you better believe I'll place justices on the court that recognize that that right is never found in the Constitution and that they will do the right thing and ultimately overturn it.
And what a weird, sad irony it is that Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, the Democrats, the international media are in this building behind me right now trying to demolish the political legacy of President Trump. But of course, the truth is, and everyone who is now celebrating the end of Roe v. Wade knows the truth, that President Trump is indeed the greatest pro-life president in the history of the United States.
There's been no better executive around the boardroom. And politics is often done behind podiums, it's often done on the news media, but it is more so done around a table. So to have an executive be able to sit around the table and say, this is the direction that our country ought to go in, and put people around him that are willing to push for that and not back down. This issue and many other issues this President Trump has had to deal with and had to face, but he stuck to his guns and he was not at all ashamed or hiding how he felt about certain issues. And the most critical of which was the issue to life. And so to see him place that as one of his top priority agendas and follow through, you must give that man the full credit just as an individual for sticking to his guns, as a politician, an incredible manner in knowing how to navigate the political scene in order to get his aim, but as a leader, being able to control the narrative, lead the country towards ultimately something that in the past 50 years we really would not have otherwise had it not been for a president that stuck to his guns and appointed these justices.
The Biden regime is now promising to undo everything that President Trump and the Supreme Court have done. Alexandre says their desperate plans are unconstitutional.
Whatever they attempt to do will have no basis in the Constitution. Anything that they'll come up with will be fabricated rights. It'll be as baseless as the right to privacy, as baseless as the right to contraception, as baseless to the right to abortion. Nothing that they will do can ultimately stand the test of time, whether it's executive orders, whether it's more funding that the president is calling for through his HHS secretary, whether it's more funding or providing travel grants for individuals to cross state lines to obtain abortions. Whatever it is, it has no bearing or merit in the Constitution. There can be challenges to these unconstitutional orders that come out. We do have to pay attention to the Senate. The Senate is in a precarious position. We're two votes away from overcoming the filibuster. That would allow a 51-vote majority to potentially codify something similar to Roe v. Wade. And you have Senators Collins, Murkowski, Sinema, and Manchin who have all signaled towards that. And so with these very precarious margins in the Senate, I think that's where the greatest threat is, at least coming from a federal level.
And that is why Christians must continue to fight against the forces of evil.
I think specifically of the flag case, right? So it came out of Boston. It's a case that Liberty Counsel brought forward. Effectively, Camp Constitution wasn't allowed to fly the Christian flag in the cradle of liberty, which was Boston. That message from the court said, no, Christian, you do have a proper place in society. You've essentially built this country. This country is built on your foundations. It's funny that if you walk through Boston, most of the statutes have Bible verses on them. Most of the statutes there are Bible verses. So even the rocks really cry out the message of the gospel. How much more do us as Americans who believe a certain way, living and breathing, have the opportunity to echo that same message, to cry out the message of the gospel as often as we can? It's a winning issue. It's a world that needs to see our light. We're a city on the hill, as Scripture clearly says, and anytime the opportunity is afforded to us to share that message, we should speak that message. It's incredible that the court understands that. It's fundamental that the founders of this Constitution, the founders of our country, knew that there would be a time where it would be challenged, knew that there would be a time where our views may have been forced to be in the recesses of our home, but they placed such strong amendments, such strong language in the Constitution that said, no, an individual has a free exercise and a free right of expression. Now that we have that right, we have a counterpart duty to not be afraid and share that message that this world needs to hear the most.